My fiancé said, I'm spending the weekend on a healing retreat with my male best friend. I said, enjoy. Then I sold the house we were renovating and left the paperwork on the kitchen table. Her scream started the moment she walked in. It all started, as most modern tragedies do, with a conversation about feelings and personal growth. My fiancée, Jessica, stood in the middle of our half-renovated living room, a space currently filled with dust, the smell of paint primer, and my slowly dying will to live. She had that serious look on her face, the one she gets when she's been watching too many self-help videos on TikTok. Babe, she said, her voice full of a sort of practiced sincerity, I need to tell you something. My soul is feeling cluttered. I was on a ladder, patching a section of drywall. I paused, my putty knife hovering. Cluttered? Did you look in your closet again? This is serious, she chided, ignoring my attempt at humor. Tristan agrees. My aura is murky. Ah, Tristan, her male best friend. Tristan is a spiritual guide and lifestyle architect, which is a fancy way of saying he's a 30-year-old unemployed guy who lives with his parents, owns a lot of healing crystals, and gives terrible advice. He has the kind of serene, punchable face that makes you instantly distrust him. So, she continued, taking a deep breath, Tristan and I are going on a healing retreat this weekend. Just the two of us. We're going to a little cabin in the woods to realign our chakras and reconnect with our authentic selves. I need this, Mark. I need this to be the best version of me. For us. A weekend, in a cabin, in the woods, with Tristan, the human dream catcher, a man whose primary contribution to society is telling other people to manifest their truth. I looked down at her from the ladder. My hands were covered in drywall mud. I had spent the last 6 months of my life, every single weekend, working on this house. The house I bought 3 years before I met her. The house I was renovating from top to bottom with my own money and my own labor, all so it could be our perfect home after the wedding. She was looking at me, expecting a fight, I think. Or maybe expecting me to be the supportive, modern man who understands that sometimes a woman's soul needs to be serviced by her male best friend in a remote location. I just wiped my hands on a rag. Okay, I said. She was taken aback. Okay, that's it? Yeah, enjoy, I said, my voice completely flat. I hope your chakras get realigned. The look of relief on her face was almost comical. She thought she'd gotten away with it. She gave me a quick, passionless kiss on the cheek, smelling faintly of expensive perfume and bad decisions. Thank you for understanding, she cooed. I'll be back Sunday night, totally refreshed. She left Friday morning, her ridiculously overpriced suitcase packed with what I assume were yoga pants and incantations. Tristan picked her up in his beat-up 20-year-old car, which had a bumper sticker that said, Coexist. I watched them drive away from my front porch. The moment his car turned the corner, the part of me that was still trying to believe in this relationship just clocked out. I wasn't heartbroken. I wasn't even angry. I felt a profound, almost heavenly sense of calm. The kind of calm you feel when you finally decide to throw out a piece of furniture that you've hated for years. My fiancée was that piece of furniture. And this was her final trip to the curb. I didn't go back to patching the drywall. I went to my office and made a phone call. I run a commercial construction company. I know a lot of people in the real estate world, including a guy named Frank, who runs a big investment firm that specializes in flipping properties. Frank and I have done business for years. He knows I don't mess around. Frank, it's Mark, I said when he answered. I've got a proposition for you. You know that mid-century modern I've been renovating over in the hills? The one you've been bleeding money into for your fiancé? Yeah, I know it. Thing's a gem. I want to sell it, I said. Today, as is. I want a cash offer, and I want a signed purchase agreement by the end of the day. There was a pause. Everything okay, Mark? Everything is fantastic, Frank. I'm just decluttering my soul. Frank, being the true professional he is, didn't ask any more personal questions. He just talked numbers. He knew the property. He knew what I had put into it. He knew what it was worth. He made me an offer on the spot. It was about 15% below what I could get if I finished the renovation and put it on the market, but it was all cash, and he could have the paperwork drawn up in an hour. No inspections, no contingencies, just a clean, fast sale. Done, I said. Send it over. While Frank's office was drawing up the e-documents, I got to work. Jessica had a lot of stuff. A whole walk-in closet full of clothes and shoes that made my construction budget look like a rounding error. I didn't throw anything away. I'm not a monster, I just packed it. I went to a hardware store and bought 20 of the largest, sturdiest cardboard boxes I could find. For the next 5 hours, I packed up every single thing she owned. Every dress, every crystal, every self-help book with a vaguely pastel cover. I labeled each box neatly, Jessica's things. By 6 p.m., the purchase and sale agreement for my house was signed electronically. I had a closing date scheduled for 10 days from now, and Jessica's entire life was stacked in a neat 20-box pyramid in the middle of the now empty living room. The last thing I did was go to my desk. I printed out a hard copy of the fully executed, legally binding sales contract for the house. I put it in a clean manila envelope. I walked over to the kitchen island, a beautiful marble slab that she had spent a month picking out, and placed the envelope right in the center. Then, I packed my own bag, locked up the house I no longer owned, and drove to a nice, quiet hotel downtown. I ordered the most expensive steak on the room service menu and slept for 8 solid hours, the first peaceful night's sleep I'd had in a year. She'll be back Sunday night, refreshed and healed. I wonder how long that feeling will last. Update 1. Well, it's Monday. The weekend was, for me, blissfully uneventful. For Jessica, not so much. Thank you for all the comments and awards. It's Ethering Your Soul is a popular theme. I knew she was home around 8 p.m. last night because my phone started to vibrate itself into another dimension. I had set up my old phone on a shelf in the living room, plugged in and recording video before I left. A little bit of petty insurance. I didn't watch the live feed, but I did check the notifications. Motion detected in the living room at 8:03 p.m. At 8:04 p.m., the first call came in. I ignored it. Then another. Then a text. The text just said, "Call me now." Then another. "Mark, what is this? What did you do?" Then a string of about 15 question marks, which I felt was a bit excessive. The phone calls kept coming, one after another. Then the voicemails started. The first one was just a high-pitched, inarticulate scream. I actually saved that one. It's my new ringtone. The second was a little more coherent. It was Jessica, sobbing hysterically, screaming something about a joke, about how this wasn't funny, demanding I come home right now and explain myself. The best part, though, was the call I got around 9 p.m. It wasn't from Jessica, it was from an unknown number. I answered, putting it on speaker. "Mark?" a man's voice said. It was Tristan, the spiritual architect, and he sounded anything but serene. "Mark, you need to come back here, man. Jessica is totally freaking out. She's harshing the whole vibe. What's going on with this paperwork?" "I sold the house, Tristan," I said calmly. "You what? Dude, that's not very zen of you. We just spent the whole weekend manifesting abundance for that place. I did a whole cleansing ritual with sage this morning." "Did you now?" I said. "Well, I guess the new owners will appreciate that. Tell Jessica she has until tomorrow at noon to have her things removed from the property. After that, they'll be considered abandoned and disposed of by the new owner's cleaning crew." "Disposed of?" "Mark, she has. A lot of expensive stuff. This is really bad energy, man. You're creating some seriously bad karmic debt." "Listen to me, Tristan," I said, my voice losing its patient tone. "My karmic account is just fine. Jessica has a pyramid of boxes containing her entire life. She needs to find a way to move them. I suggest you rent a U-Haul. You seem like a U-Haul kind of guy. This is no longer my problem." I hung up. The texts from Jessica continued all night, cycling through the 5 stages of grief. Denial. "This is a joke. Tell me it's a joke." Anger. "I will ruin you. You will not get away with this." Bargaining. "Please, Mark, we can fix this. I made a mistake." And depression. "My life is over. How could you do this to me?" She never quite made it to acceptance. This morning I got a call from her father. He's a soft-handed lawyer who's used to bullying people into submission. He tried to take a hard line. "Mark, I don't know what kind of stunt you're trying to pull," he began, "but you've put my daughter in a terrible position. You can't just sell a marital asset out from under her." "First of all," I said, "it's not a marital asset. It's my asset. I bought it, I paid for it, and my name is the only one on the deed. We are not married. We were engaged, a state which I no longer consider us to be in." Second of all, I can sell it, because I did. It's done. We will see about that in court, he blustered. Great, I said. I can't wait. We can talk about the house. We can also talk about the thousands of dollars of my money Jessica spent on her healing retreat with her lover while living in my home. We can talk about the text messages between them that I'm sure a good lawyer could subpoena. How do you think that's going to play in front of a judge? You're a lawyer, you tell me. There was a long, satisfying silence on the other end of the line. He knew he had nothing. Jessica will need her things, he finally said, his voice defeated. Noon tomorrow, I said, and hung up. I drove by the house an hour ago, out of curiosity. There was a small moving truck parked out front. Tristan was struggling to carry a box down the steps, looking like his aura was about to have a hernia. Jessica was standing on the curb, screaming directions at him. It seems their healing and spiritual connection doesn't extend to manual labor. They looked miserable. It was beautiful. Update 2. It's been a couple of weeks and the fallout has been even more entertaining than I could have possibly imagined. The story of the healing retreat and the subsequent house sale has made its way through our social circle, and Jessica's attempts at damage control have been a masterclass in self-destruction. Her first move was to launch a smear campaign on social media. She posted a long, tearful story about how her cruel, materialistic fiancé had thrown her out on the street for daring to take a weekend for her own mental health. She painted me as a monster, a controlling tyrant who couldn't stand to see her grow as a person. She conveniently left out the part where her personal growth was being guided by another man in a cabin. The post got a lot of initial sympathy from her followers, the kind of people who think a scented candle can solve a mortgage crisis. But then, people started asking questions. Mutual friends who knew me, and knew that I had been working myself to the bone on that house for her, started to poke holes in her story. Then I made one simple, strategic move. I didn't respond to her directly. I just posted a single photo on my own, private social media. It was a picture of the living room, taken the day I left. In the center of the photo, you could see the massive, neat pyramid of 20 cardboard boxes, each one clearly labeled Jessica's things. My caption was simple. Did some decluttering. The soul feels much lighter now. That one photo completely destroyed her narrative. It wasn't a picture of a woman's things thrown out on the lawn. It was a picture of a methodical, organized departure. It screamed, this was not a surprise. My friend saw it. Our mutual friend saw it. And suddenly, her story about being a poor, abandoned victim didn't seem so credible. The next phase of her meltdown was financial. She apparently thought that even though we weren't married, she was entitled to some kind of fiancé alimony. Her father sent my lawyer a list of demands that was so delusional. My lawyer actually laughed out loud during the phone call. They demanded half the proceeds from the sale of the house. They demanded I pay the lease on her luxury SUV for the next year. They even demanded I pay for her therapy to help her cope with the trauma of the breakup, the trauma she caused. My lawyer's response was short and brutal. He sent them a copy of the deed to the house, a detailed accounting of every dollar I had spent on the renovation, and a friendly reminder that in our state, fiancés are entitled to exactly nothing. He also included a bill for the cost of the moving company I had to hire to remove her abandoned furniture from the house after her noon deadline passed, as Tristan and his bad back apparently gave up halfway through the job. The best part, however, has been watching her relationship with Tristan implode. According to my sources, Jessica moved in with him temporarily into the one spare bedroom at his parents' house. The spiritual architect's temple, it turns out, was a basement room with a Star Wars poster on the wall. The healing and positive vibrations apparently wore off as soon as the reality of her being broke, homeless, and emotionally unhinged set in. They were constantly fighting about money. She expected him to support her, and he expected her to, manifest a winning lottery ticket. Their profound spiritual connection apparently couldn't survive a single utility bill. Last I heard, his parents got tired of the constant screaming and gave them both an ultimatum. Tristan, in a final act of spiritual cowardice, chose his mom's meatloaf over his soulmate. He kicked her out. She's living with her parents now. Her father had to co-sign a lease for a tiny apartment for her, and she's apparently furious about the downgrade. From a custom-renovated house in the hills to a one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. That's some powerful manifestation right there. Final update. It has been 6 months since the great chakra realignment of last winter. I thought I'd post one final update to close the book on this chapter of my life. The short version is, my life is better in every conceivable way. The long version is a little more satisfying. After the legal threats from her father went nowhere, and after her social media campaign crashed and burned, Jessica seemed to just deflate. The anger and entitlement were replaced by a grim, bitter reality. She was in her 30s, living in a small apartment paid for by her disappointed parents, with no house, no fiancé, and no income stream beyond the occasional sponsored post for teeth whitening strips. Tristan, the lifestyle architect, has apparently moved on to architecting someone else's life. I saw him at a coffee shop a while back. He was with another woman, explaining the spiritual significance of foam art to her. He saw me, looked like he'd seen a ghost, and practically ran out of the building. So much for facing your karmic truth. The house sale went through without a hitch. Frank and his team finished the renovation, and they did a beautiful job. They put it back on the market and sold it for a huge profit. I took my cash from the initial sale and reinvested it. I bought a piece of commercial property, and my business is booming. I didn't lose money, I just liquidated a bad asset. The asset being my relationship. But here's the part that I think you'll all appreciate the most. The true situational comedy that a writer couldn't make up. About a month ago, I had to go to the city planning department to file some permits for a new construction project. It's a miserable place, filled with long lines and the quiet hum of bureaucracy. I was waiting for my number to be called when I saw her. Jessica. She was working there. She was sitting behind a plexiglass barrier at one of the information counters, wearing a drab, ill-fitting city employee polo shirt. Her hair was pulled back, her makeup was gone, and the entitled sparkle in her eye had been replaced by the dull, soul-crushing boredom of a 9-to-5 government job. She was stamping forms and explaining zoning ordinances to confused, angry people. The woman who wanted her soul to be free was now trapped in the most soulless place on earth. My number was called, and as fate would have it, I was directed to her window. I walked up to the counter and placed my paperwork in the tray. She looked up, and our eyes met. The recognition was instant. For a second, a flicker of the old arrogant fury appeared. But it was gone in a flash, replaced by pure, uncut humiliation. I didn't say a word about our past. I didn't smirk. I didn't make a scene. I just acted like a normal customer. "Good morning," I said politely. "I'm here to file a permit for a new commercial build-out at 125 Elm Street." She just stared at me, her mouth slightly open. She couldn't speak. "Is there a problem?" I asked, feigning concern. "It's a standard application. Everything should be in order." She finally snapped out of it, her face a deep, painful shade of red. She took my paperwork, her hands shaking. She couldn't even look at me. She just stared down at the forms, her professional life and her personal failure colliding right there on her little desk. She stamped the papers with unnecessary force, slid them back to me, and mumbled, "It'll be a 6 to 8 week review period." "Thank you for your help," I said, my voice bright and cheerful. "Have a great day." And I walked away. That was the real revenge.